Welcome back to Life Be Lifing. Today's episode is called Healing the Child That Keeps Fighting in Your Marriage. This conversation is different because we're not just talking about marriage. We're talking about the version of ourselves that showed up long before marriage ever happened. The little girl, the little boy, the child who learned how to survive, the child who learned how to protect themselves, the child who learned that love wasn't always safe, the child who learned that vulnerability could lead to disappointment. The child who learned that asking for help could lead to rejection. And sometimes that child grows up, gets married, builds a life, starts a family, but never fully heals. So now every disagreement feels bigger than it really is. Every misunderstanding feels personal. Every conflict feels familiar. Not because of what's happening now, but because of what happened then. Today's question is simple. Are you fighting your spouse or fighting old pain? Many people think childhood ends when adulthood begins, but trauma doesn't care how old you are. Trauma doesn't care about wedding rings, anniversaries, mortgages, or children. Trauma follows people into relationships. Some people grew up feeling invisible. Some grew up feeling responsible for everyone else's happiness. Some learned they had to earn love. Some learned not to trust anyone. Some learned emotions were weakness. And those lessons don't disappear simply because someone gets married. They become relationship patterns. Patterns of fear, patterns of avoidance, patterns of self-protection, patterns that quietly shape how we communicate, argue, trust, and connect. Let's talk about something many people praise. Being strong, being independent, not needing anyone, handling everything yourself. Sounds healthy, right? Sometimes. But sometimes hyperindependence is simply unhealed pain wearing a cape. Because some people learned early, if I depend on people, I'll be disappointed. If I trust people, I'll get hurt. If I need people, I'll be abandoned. So they become self-sufficient, not because they want to, but because they feel they have to. Then marriage becomes difficult because healthy intimacy requires trust, partnership, vulnerability, and dependence. Not weakness, dependence. The ability to lean on someone, the ability to believe someone will be there. And those things feel terrifying to someone who survived by doing everything alone. One of the deepest wounds people carry into relationships is abandonment. The fear that people leave, the fear that people stop loving you, the fear that eventually you'll be rejected. Abandonment wounds create overreactions. A delayed text becomes rejection. A disagreement becomes abandonment. A boundary becomes proof somebody doesn't care. The actual situation may be small, but the emotional response feels huge because you're not reacting to one moment. You're reacting to years of hurt, years of disappointment, years of feeling forgotten, ignored, or left behind. People often think defensiveness is arrogance. Sometimes it is, but many times it's fear. Fear of being blamed, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being judged, fear of not being enough. Some people learn growing up that mistakes were dangerous. So now every conversation feels like an attack. Every concern feels like criticism. Every disagreement feels like rejection. Before their spouse even finishes speaking, their defenses are already activated. Not because they're cruel, not because they don't care, because they're scared. Vulnerability is one of the hardest things trauma survivors ever learn because vulnerability requires risk. It requires trust. It requires honesty. It requires letting someone see the parts of you you've spent years hiding, the insecure parts, the broken parts, the lonely parts, the scared parts. Many people would rather argue than be vulnerable because arguing feels safer, control feels safer, anger feels safer, distance feels safer. But healing happens through vulnerability, not avoidance. Have you ever had an argument that started over something small but felt enormous? That's often because the argument isn't actually about the argument. It's about what the argument represents. A forgotten phone call may feel like neglect. A harsh tone may feel like childhood criticism. Feeling ignored may trigger old abandonment wounds. Being corrected may trigger old shame. The present situation opens the door and the past comes running through it. Suddenly you're fighting more than each other. You're fighting history. Ask yourself honestly, What childhood lesson am I still carrying? What wounds do I expect my spouse to heal? What triggers make me feel like a child again? What fears show up most often in my relationships? Am I reacting to today or reacting to yesterday? And the hardest question of all, who would I be if I finally healed? Healing doesn't mean pretending the past never happened. Healing means the past no longer controls the present. Healing means understanding that your spouse is not your parent, your childhood bully, the person who abandoned you, or the person who hurt you years ago. Until we separate old pain from present reality, we will continue fighting battles that ended years ago. Because the truth is, many marriages aren't struggling because two people don't love each other. They're struggling because two wounded children are asking each other to fix pain they didn't create. And that's a burden no marriage can carry forever. Unhealed children create exhausted adults. Heal honestly, love intentionally, protect your peace. And remember, healing the child inside you may be the greatest gift you ever give your marriage.